Ever wonder why David Bowie's eyes looked like they belonged to an alien? Two eyes, one blue, one lost in shadow. A gaze that rewrote the stars. If you've ever stared into that cosmic glare and felt the universe staring back, you're not alone. But here's the kicker. They weren't born that way. Hi, I'm Andy Fenstermaker, host of Poetic Wax, a weekly music history series and podcast where I dig into the record collection I've been building since the 1990s to explore the sometimes little known and little told history of a band, album, or song from within. David Bowie, the Starman, the Thin White Duke, the man with the voice of a galaxy, and those weird eyes. One blue, one brown. Or so we think. Picture this, 1962. David Jones, he's not Bowie yet, is just a 15-year-old kid in Bromley, England, with dreams bigger than the grey skies above. He's artsy, he's quirky, he's got a best friend named George Underwood. In fact, the two were inseparable, attending Bromley Technical High School with another famed musician, Peter Frampton. In fact, George and David were in a band together called George and the Dragons. Until one day they weren't. Why? Well, of course, a girl was involved. Her name was Carol, and both boys were quite smitten. Teenage hormones flare, tensions rise, and it all comes to a head in a schoolyard showdown. The story goes like this. George asks to meet up with Carol the following week for a date. But the day of the date, he gets a call from David, who says she can't meet with him because she wants to go out with David instead.
Well, I'll meet you down there at 7:30. I got a phone call, David, saying, yeah, she can't meet you. She doesn't want to go out with you. She wants to go out with me. I thought, oh, well, I suppose all fair in love and war and all that nonsense, you know. It was okay as long as it was true, but it wasn't.
Running into a mutual friend later that evening, he was informed that Carol had been waiting for him for over an hour. This set him off, and rightfully so. Everything David had said on the phone was an absolute lie. The next morning, the pair were on a bus. David in the front, George in the back. He could hear David talking about this girl he was going out with that George had wanted to. And that was it.
I got so enraged when the break time came along, I just walked up to David and just whacked him one. And I must have hit him with my ring or something happened. A few days later, he got rushed to Moorfields Eye Hospital.
Now, this wasn't just any punch. It lands square on David's left eye. And here's where the story takes a turn. That fist doesn't just bruise. It changes David forever. See what I did there? That gives the song a whole new twist, doesn't it? So it turns out George's punch damaged the muscles around David's left pupil. The technical term, anisocoria. The poetic term, a window to another world. I don't know about you, but I prefer the poetic one. Much easier to pronounce. Bowie, in an interview with biographer Mark Spitz, would recount, quote, "It wasn't a very hard punch, but it obviously caught me at a rather odd angle. George had scratched the pupil. He thinks it must have been a ring that he was wearing, though other accounts note that he may have been a fingernail. The injury paralyzed the muscles within Bowie's eye that control the pupil's size, leaving it permanently dilated."
I was hit in the eye, and it severed one of the muscles in the back, so it holds the pupil always open.
Yes.
So that's why it looks dark. It's really the same color, but it's just the pupil itself is large.
Yeah. So you don't see anything there?
I see something, yeah, but it's kind of hazy.
In bright light, most eyes shrink their pupils to adjust. David's left eye just couldn't do that anymore. It stayed wide open, a black hole in a sea of hazel, while his right eye stayed its natural blue. From a distance, it looked like heterochromia, two different colored eyes, but it was actually an illusion, a beautiful cosmic trick. Now, here's the thing. David wasn't mad about it. About the two colors of eyes, The Cut would note that, quote, Bowie was able to further use these to full effect thanks to his major case of red eye, since photograph flashes bounced off that dilated pupil, end quote. George and the Dragons would pretty much come to an immediate end, but the two would soon make up and form other bands, including Davy Jones and the King Bees, even recording together under that name. But Underwood's heart wasn't in that aspect of music. His true love was art. Here's George in an article in Creative Boom. Songwriting really was David's forte. He really mastered that one, whereas I was scribbling away with a pencil and paper on drawing or painting, end quote. Years later, Bowie would say that George did him a favor. That punch didn't just mark his face, it marked his destiny. By the time he became David Bowie, those mismatched eyes weren't a flaw. They were a superpower. They gave him that otherworldly edge, a gaze that could hypnotize a crowd or haunt a camera lens. Directors, photographers, fans, they just couldn't look away. And they became a defining element of many of his personas. Think about it. Ziggy Stardust's alien aura, that piercing stare in The Man Who Fell to Earth, even the Goblin King in Labyrinth, smirking through the shadows. It's those eyes that pull you in. They became part of the mythos, a symbol of Bowie's refusal to stay ordinary. And George? Well, he and David stayed friends. George even designed some of Bowie's album art, from a fistfight to a legacy. Talk about a plot twist. Underwood would design album art for others as well, including a few albums by T-Rex, one by Mott the Hoople, and more. For Bowie, he'd lend his artistic touch on the cover of Hunky Dory, and none other than Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. Credit where credit's due, though, according to George, who state the following about both of those albums. Quote, they gave me the black and white photographs to color up. Brian Ward was the maestro behind those. His photographs were iconic. George would accompany David on his 1972 US tour, stating, quote, I think he wanted someone around who wasn't in the business, who he could talk to in a normal fashion without having to perform, end quote. He'd even illustrate a dust jacket for the novel edition of The Man Who Fell to Earth, an illustration that might look a little familiar. It's the artistic basis of the 1977 album Low. Which came first? I admit I didn't do the research. But there's one more layer. Bowie leaned into the mystery. He would let people whisper about the two-colored eyes, never fully correcting the record in those early years. Why? Because David Bowie wasn't just a man, he was a story. And those eyes, they were the first chapter. So there you have it. If you've ever wondered about them, well, that's the story of David Bowie's weird eyes. Not a birth defect, not a cosmic gift, but a schoolyard scuffle turned into stardust. Next time you see a picture of Bowie, look close. One eye's a portal, the other a mirror. And together, they're pure magic. If you've loved this deep dive into Bowie's world, look for that like button, subscribe to Poetic Wax, and let me know in the comments, what's your favorite Bowie moment? Until next time, keep your eyes open, pun intended, and I'll see you soon.